The morning sunlight filtered through silk curtains worth more than her entire college tuition. Zuri Ashford lay perfectly still, afraid to breathe, afraid to disturb the sleeping giant beside her. Kang Jae-won's arm was draped possessively around her waist, his breath warm against the curve of her neck. 3 months ago, this man had placed a contract in front of her, cold, clinical, transactional. $3 million to pretend to be his wife. But the way he held her now? There was nothing pretend about it. Stop thinking so loud, his deep voice rumbled, pulling her closer. You're my wife. This is where you belong. Zuri's heart stuttered. When did the lies become truth? When did the contract become this? And why did she desperately want it to stay? If you're new here, welcome to the family. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our drama-filled stories. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this one unfolds. Now, let's go back to where it all began. 6 months earlier, Zuri Ashford stood in the sterile hallway of Mercy General Hospital, staring at a number that made her stomach drop. $847,000. That was the cost of keeping her younger sister, Naomi, alive. Experimental treatment for a rare autoimmune disorder. The insurance company had denied the claim 3 times. Her mother's savings were gone. Their father's life insurance had been depleted years ago. And the bank was threatening to foreclose on their family home, the only stable place Naomi had ever known. Zuri pressed her palm against the cold wall, fighting the urge to scream. She was 26 years old with a degree in business administration, a job that barely covered rent, and a family that was falling apart around her. Her older sister, Kira, was doing everything she could, but even her nursing salary wasn't enough. Miss Ashford? Zuri looked up to find a man in an impeccable charcoal suit standing before her. He was Korean, perhaps in his late 30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to assess her in a single glance. I'm Secretary Han. I represent someone who may be interested in solving your problem. Zuri's guard went up immediately. Who are you? How do you know my name? Secretary Han produced a sleek black card and handed it to her. On it was embossed a single symbol, a serpent wrapped around a crown. My employer has been watching you, Miss Ashford. Your academic records, your work ethic, your discretion. He believes you might be suitable for a unique arrangement. I'm not interested in whatever this is. $3 million. Zuri's breath caught. Transferred to an account of your choosing. Enough to cover your sister's treatment, pay off your family's debts, and secure your mother's future. Secretary Han's voice was perfectly even. All you have to do is meet with him and hear his proposal. Every instinct told Zuri to walk away. This was dangerous. This was insane. But then she thought of Naomi, pale and thin in that hospital bed, asking when she could go home. She thought of her mother, working double shifts despite her arthritis, pretending she wasn't exhausted. She thought of Kira, who had given up her dream of medical school to help support the family. When and where? Zuri heard herself ask. The restaurant didn't have a name, at least, not one visible from the outside. It occupied the entire top floor of a building in downtown Atlanta, accessible only by private elevator. When the doors opened, Zuri found herself in a space that screamed old money and older power. Dark wood. Dim lighting. The subtle scent of expensive whiskey. And at the center of it all, sitting at a table with a view of the entire city, was the most devastatingly handsome man Zuri had ever seen. Kang Jae-won. She recognized him from business magazines, the mysterious CEO of Prometheus Holdings, a conglomerate with fingers in everything from tech to real estate. What the magazines didn't mention, but everyone whispered about, was the truth. Prometheus Holdings was the legitimate face of the Kang family empire, one of the most powerful Korean-American organized crime syndicates on the East Coast. He was 31, tall, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. His eyes were sharp and cold, missing nothing as they tracked her approach. Miss Ashford. His voice was deeper than she expected, with the faintest trace of an accent. Please, sit. Zuri forced herself to move with confidence, refusing to let her fears show. She'd grown up in a neighborhood where showing weakness got you hurt. This was just a different kind of jungle. She sat. A server appeared instantly, pouring water and then vanishing. "Your sister's condition is deteriorating," Jae-won said without preamble. "The hospital has given her 6 months without treatment. With treatment, she has a 93% chance of full recovery." Zuri's hands clenched beneath the table. "You've been investigating me thoroughly." He didn't apologize. "I needed to know you were the right person for this arrangement." "What arrangement?" Jae-won leaned back, his gaze never leaving hers. "I need a wife." Zuri blinked. Of all the things she'd been expecting, and her imagination had run wild on the drive over, this wasn't it. "Excuse me?" "A wife," he repeated. "For 1 year. You'll live in my home, appear at my side for public functions, and play the role of a devoted spouse. In exchange, you'll receive $3 million upon completion of the contract." "Why me?" "I'm sure you could have anyone. I need someone with no connections to my world. Someone intelligent enough to play the part convincingly, but with enough to lose that they won't be tempted to betray me." His eyes glinted. "Your family situation makes you ideal." Zuri felt a chill run down her spine. "That sounds like a threat." "It's a fact." He pushed a folder across the table. "This is the contract. Read it carefully. You'll have 24 hours to decide." Zuri opened the folder. The contract was extensive, pages and pages of clauses and conditions. She scanned the key points. Duration, 12 months from the date of legal marriage. Compensation, $3 million, paid upon successful completion of the contract. Living arrangements, the party of the second part, hereafter referred to as the wife, will reside in the primary residence of the party of the first part. Confidentiality, all aspects of this arrangement must remain strictly confidential. Breach of confidentiality will result in immediate termination of the contract and forfeiture of all compensation. Physical intimacy, not required unless mutually agreed upon by both parties. That last clause made her cheeks warm slightly. "Why do you need a fake wife?" she asked, looking up from the contract. "What's the real reason?" For a moment, something flickered in those cold eyes, something that might have been respect. "My grandmother is dying," Jae-won said quietly. "She has 3 months, perhaps less. Her final wish is to see me married, to know that the Kang legacy will continue." His jaw tightened. "I refuse to let her die unhappy." Zuri studied him. This was the notorious mafia boss everyone whispered about. A man who was willing to pay $3 million to give his dying grandmother peace. "There's more," she said. It wasn't a question. "There's always more." He didn't elaborate. "Those are my reasons." "What are yours, Miss Ashford?" "Your sister's treatment will cost approximately $800,000. "Why would I pay nearly 4 times that amount?" "Because you can afford it. And because you need someone who won't break." Zuri surprised herself with the steel in her voice. "You need someone who can walk into your world, handle whatever comes, and walk out with her head held high. You're not just buying a wife, you're buying loyalty, discretion, and backbone. That's worth more than $3 million. Silence stretched between them. Then Kang Jae-won smiled, a slow, dangerous curve of his lips that made Zuri's heart skip. "I knew I chose correctly." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. 24 hours, Miss Ashford. I'll be waiting." Zuri signed the contract the next morning. Within 48 hours, her sister's treatment was approved and paid for. The mortgage on her mother's house was cleared. Kira received an anonymous scholarship offer that would cover the rest of her medical school tuition. And Zuri found herself standing in a courthouse, wearing a simple white dress, about to marry a stranger. The ceremony was brief, just the two of them, Secretary Han as witness, and a judge who asked no questions. When Jae-won slid the ring onto her finger, a stunning oval diamond that caught the light like captured fire, His touch was surprisingly gentle. "Mrs. Kong," he murmured. "Welcome to my world." That world, Zuri quickly discovered, was as dangerous as it was luxurious. The Kong estate was a sprawling compound in the wealthy suburbs of Atlanta, hidden behind gates and guards and more security than she'd ever seen. The main house was a masterpiece of modern Korean architecture, all clean lines and beautiful craftsmanship, but it felt more like a museum than a home. And waiting inside were the people who would make Zuri's life very, very difficult. "This is her." The voice came from a tall, elegant woman in her 50s, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun. She circled Zuri like a shark assessing prey. "Mother," Jae-won said calmly, "this is Zuri. My wife." Mrs. Kong, Soo-yeon, though Zuri would never dare use that name, looked at her new daughter-in-law with undisguised contempt. "She's not Korean." "No. She's not from any family I recognize." "No. She's not suitable. She's my wife." There was iron in Jae-won's voice now. "You will treat her with the respect that position demands." Soo-yeon's lips pressed into a thin line. "We'll see how long that lasts." She swept out of the room, leaving a chill in her wake. Zuri exhaled slowly. "She seems lovely." To her surprise, Jae-won actually laughed, a short, startled sound. "She'll come around. Eventually. And if she doesn't? Then she'll learn to pretend. She's very good at pretending." He checked his watch. "I have meetings. Secretary Han will show you to our quarters and explain the household rules." "Rules?" "The Kong household operates on certain principles. You'll adapt." His eyes softened fractionally. "And Zuri? You did well today. Most people can't meet my mother's stare for more than a few seconds." Before she could respond, he was gone. The next few weeks were a crash course in survival. The household rules were strict and numerous. Meals were served at specific times. Certain areas were off-limits without explicit permission. There were protocols for everything: how to greet senior family members, how to behave at business functions, even how to pour tea correctly. Zuri learned quickly. She'd survived 4 years at a predominantly white private university on scholarship, navigating microaggressions and outright hostility with her head held high. She'd grown up in a neighborhood where you learned to read people or you didn't last long. The Kong household was just another environment to master. But mastering the environment didn't mean it was easy. Soo-yeon made her displeasure known in 1,000 small ways, seating Zuri at the far end of the table during family dinners, forgetting to tell her about important events, making pointed comments about proper Korean wives. The staff, taking their cues from their matriarch, were politely dismissive at best. And then there was Maylin Park. She appeared at the estate exactly 2 weeks after the wedding, a stunning Korean woman around Zuri's age, with perfect skin and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm an old friend of Jae-won's," she said sweetly, reaching out to shake Zuri's hand. Her grip was too tight. "His mother and my mother have been close for years. We all expected him to marry someone more appropriate." Zuri returned the handshake with equal pressure. "And yet, here I am." "Yes." Maylin's smile sharpened. "Here you are. For now." The implication was clear: this wouldn't last. Zuri didn't belong here, and Maylin would make sure everyone knew it. But Zuri had faced down worse than jealous socialites. The first time Zuri met Halmiani, grandmother Kong, everything changed. She was expecting another hostile interrogation, another cold assessment. Instead, she found herself in a warmly decorated room filled with family photos and the scent of jasmine tea, facing a tiny woman whose eyes sparkled with life despite her frail body. "So you're the one who finally caught my grandson." Halmiani's voice was thin but warm. "Come closer. Let me look at you." Zuri approached, aware of Jae-won watching from the doorway. Halmiani took her hands, studying her face with the intensity of someone who had seen much in their many years. "Beautiful," she pronounced. "Strong. I can see it in your eyes, you've known hardship." "Good." My grandson needs someone who understands that life isn't always easy. Halmiani, J1 started. Quiet, boy. I'm talking to your wife. Halmiani patted Zuri's hands. I know what you're thinking. That you don't belong here. That everyone is watching and waiting for you to fail. Her grip tightened. Let them watch. Let them wait. You are Kong now, that means you bow to no one except family, and you never show them your fear. Something inside Zuri cracked open, just a little. I'll try, she whispered. You'll succeed, Halmiani corrected. Because I can see your heart, child. It's bigger than you want anyone to know. From that day forward, Halmiani became Zuri's fiercest advocate, and her dearest friend. They spent hours together. Halmiani taught her about Korean culture, about the history of the Kang family, about the expectations and traditions that Zuri would need to navigate. In return, Zuri told her about her own family, about Naomi's illness, about her mother's strength, about Kira's sacrifices. You did this for them, Halmiani said one afternoon, her eyes knowing. The marriage. Zuri froze. Don't worry, I won't tell. Halmiani smiled. But I wonder, is it still only for them? Or is there something else keeping you here now? Zuri thought of J1, how he'd started appearing at meals more often, how he'd begun asking about her day, how sometimes she'd catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. I don't know, she admitted. That's honest. Halmiani squeezed her hand. Whatever happens, remember this, the heart knows things the mind refuses to accept. Trust it. The first crack appeared at a charity gala 3 months into the marriage. Zuri had been dreading the event, hundreds of Atlanta's elite, all watching, all judging. She'd spent hours with the stylist J1 had insisted on hiring, emerging in a stunning emerald gown that hugged her curves and set off her dark skin beautifully. When she descended the stairs, J1 was waiting. He stared. And stared. Is something wrong? Zuri asked, suddenly self-conscious. No. His voice was rougher than usual. Nothing wrong. You look. He seemed to struggle for words. You look like you belong on the cover of a magazine. Warmth spread through her chest. The gala itself was a minefield. Mei-Lin was there, draping herself over J1 at every opportunity. Business associates made thinly veiled comments about unconventional choices. Soo-Yeon watched with barely concealed satisfaction every time Zuri stumbled over an unfamiliar name or tradition. But Zuri held her ground. And when Mei-Lin accidentally spilled wine on Zuri's dress, it was J1 who stepped in. That was clumsy of you, Mei-Lin. His voice was ice. I hope you'll be more careful in the future. My wife's wardrobe is worth more than most people's cars. The room went silent. Mei-Lin's face paled. J1, I didn't mean. Secretary Han will arrange for your driver. Good night. It was a dismissal, public, humiliating, and absolute. Later, in the car, Zuri sat in stunned silence. You didn't have to do that, she finally said. Yes, I did. J1's jaw was tight. You are my wife. Anyone who disrespects you disrespects me. And no one disrespects me. But Mei-Lin, your mother, are not married to me. You are. He turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her heart stutter. I protect what's mine, Zuri. Always. Mine. The word echoed in her mind long after they returned home. The second crack came a week later, when Zuri found him in the garden at 2 in the morning. She'd woken from a nightmare, Naomi in a hospital bed, machines beeping, doctors shaking their heads, and couldn't get back to sleep. She'd wandered outside, seeking fresh air, and found J1 sitting on a stone bench, staring at the sky. Couldn't sleep either, she asked softly. He didn't startle. Sit with me. She sat. They were quiet for a long moment. Then J1 spoke, his voice low and tired. My father was killed when I was 17. Rival family. They thought taking him out would weaken us. His hands clenched. They were wrong. I stepped up. I learned. I became what I needed to become to protect everyone. J1. I was supposed to marry for alliance. Someone from one of the other families, Maylin or someone like her. A strategic merger. He turned to look at her. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't marry someone who looked at me and saw only the Kong name, only the power. What do you see when you look at me? Zuri whispered. Fire. The word was barely audible. I see fire and strength and something I don't have a name for. Something that makes me want to be more than what I am. Her breath caught. This was supposed to be simple, he continued. A business arrangement. Nothing complicated. He laughed bitterly. Nothing is simple with you. Is that bad? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. No, he finally said. I don't think it is. When he reached over and took her hand, she didn't pull away. The change in their relationship didn't go unnoticed. Suyun's disapproval hardened into active opposition. She began finding reasons to criticize everything Zuri did, how she spoke, how she dressed, how she addressed the staff. She enlisted allies within the household, creating a constant undercurrent of hostility. But worse than Suyun was the threat from outside. The Park family, Maylin's family, had deep ties to the Kong organization. When Maylin was publicly humiliated at the gala, her father took it as a personal insult. He began working behind the scenes, whispering to other families that J1 had gone soft, that his judgment was compromised, that a Kong led by the heart rather than the head was a Kong that could be challenged. The attack started small. Business deals that fell through at the last minute. Shipments that went missing. Associates who suddenly couldn't be reached. And then they got personal. Zuri was leaving the hospital after visiting Naomi, whose treatment was going wonderfully, who was looking healthier every day, when she noticed the car following her. She didn't panic. She'd grown up knowing how to handle threatening situations. She called Secretary Han immediately. I'm being followed. Black SUV, no plates I can see. I'm on Peachtree heading toward. Stay calm, Mrs. Kong. Security is already being dispatched. Do not stop the car. Zuri's driver, one of J1's people, she now realized, had already noticed and was taking evasive action. Within minutes, they'd lost the tail, but the message was clear. Someone wanted her afraid. When she returned to the estate, J1 was waiting. She'd never seen him so angry, not the cold, controlled anger he usually displayed, but something raw and dangerous that simmered just beneath the surface. Who? He demanded. I don't know. Black SUV. I know about the SUV. I'm asking who you think would do this. The Parks? Zuri shook her head. It could be anyone. I'm an outsider, J1. There are plenty of people who want me gone. Anyone who threatens you threatens me. His voice was low and deadly. They will learn what that means. J1. He pulled her into his arms. It was the first time he'd held her like this, not for show, not for appearances, but because he needed to. She could feel his heart pounding, could feel the tension in every line of his body. I won't let anyone hurt you, he breathed into her hair. I can't. She understood then, with crystalline clarity, that this wasn't about the contract anymore. This was something else entirely. The confrontation with the Parks came 3 days later. Thomas Park, Maylin's father, arrived at the estate unannounced, demanding to speak with J1. Zuri was there, seated beside her husband in the formal receiving room, when he strode in. You've made a serious mistake, Park said without preamble. Marrying this person. Alienating families who have been your allies for decades. The other organizations are talking, Kong. They're questioning your fitness to lead. Let them talk. J1's voice was calm, dangerously calm. I've led this family through challenges that would have broken lesser men. If anyone wants to question my fitness, they're welcome to try me directly. This isn't about your strength. It's about your judgment. Park's eyes flicked to Zuri with undisguised contempt. You married a nobody. An outsider with no connections, no family worth mentioning. My family is worth everything. The words came from Zuri, surprising everyone, including herself. She stood, drawing herself up to her full height. My mother raised 3 daughters on her own after my father died. My older sister gave up her dreams to help support us. My younger sister is fighting a battle that would break most people. They are worth more than any amount of money or power or so-called connections. Park sneered. Pretty words. I'm not finished. Zuri's voice cut through like a blade. You think I don't belong here? Fine. But I'm here. I'm not leaving. And if you think you can intimidate me with cars following me and whispered threats, you've badly misjudged the situation. She stepped forward, meeting Park's eyes without flinching. I've survived things you can't imagine, Mr. Park. I've fought for everything I have. So bring your challenges. Bring your tests. I'll meet every single one and I'll still be standing when you're done. The room was silent. Then Jae-won stood, coming to stand beside her, his hands settling at the small of her back. You heard my wife. His voice was soft, but there was no mistaking the steel beneath. I suggest you leave now, and don't return unless you're prepared to show proper respect. Park's face contorted with fury, but he knew when he was beaten. He left without another word. The moment the door closed, Zuri felt her knees go weak. She just challenged a powerful man in front of everyone. That, Jae-won said quietly, was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. She looked up at him. You terrified him. There was awe in his voice, and something warmer. You terrified me a little. I was terrified, she admitted. I couldn't let him talk about my family like that. I know. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. And that's why He stopped. The air between them crackled. Why you what? Zuri breathed. Nothing. But his eyes said everything. We should talk. Later. The talk didn't happen later that night, because Halmiani's condition took a sudden turn. Zuri rushed to her room alongside Jae-won, finding doctors already there, monitors beeping urgently. For 3 terrifying hours, they waited, Zuri holding Jae-won's hand while he paced and made calls and slowly, quietly fell apart. When the crisis passed, when Halmiani was stable again, though weaker than before, Zuri stayed by her bedside. Don't look so worried, Halmiani whispered. I'm not gone yet. Don't joke about that, Zuri said, her eyes stinging. I have to joke, child. Death is too serious to take seriously. Halmiani's hand found hers. Come closer. I have something to tell you. Zuri leaned in. I know about the contract. Zuri's blood ran cold. I knew from the beginning, Halmiani continued. My grandson thinks he's clever, but I've been reading people since before he was born. Halmiani, I'm sorry, I never meant to deceive you. Hush. The old woman's grip was surprisingly strong. You think I care about contracts and arrangements? I care about my grandson's happiness. And for the first time in his life, he's happy. Her eyes softened. Because of you. Tears spilled down Zuri's cheeks. The question is, Halmiani continued, do you love him? Zuri thought of Jae-won, cold, dangerous Jae-won, who left fresh flowers in her room every morning because he'd noticed she loved them. Who had quietly arranged for her mother and sisters to receive the best possible care without being asked. Who stayed up late helping her study Korean, laughing at her mistakes instead of criticizing them. Who looked at her sometimes like she was the only person in the world. Yes, she whispered. I love him. Halmiani smiled. Then tell him. Before it's too late. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Another crisis hit, not medical this time, but business. A major deal collapsed, and evidence surfaced suggesting that someone inside the organization had leaked information. Suspicion fell on everyone, including Zuri. Soo-yeon was quick to capitalize. "You see," she said to Jae-won, her voice sharp. "This is what happens when you let an outsider into our home. She has access to everything, our business, our family, our secrets. How do you know she isn't the leak?" "Mother. I've already contacted our people in her neighborhood." Soo-yeon's eyes glittered. Her family was desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. She could have been planted here by our enemies from the beginning. Zuri stood frozen, watching Jae-won's face. This was it, the moment of truth. Would he believe his mother? Would months of growing trust and connection be wiped away by suspicion and fear? "Secretary Han," Jae-won said quietly, "please show my mother to her room." Jae-won. Now. When they were alone, Jae-won turned to Zuri. "It's not me," she said quickly. "I would never. I know you have no reason to believe me, but..." "Stop." He crossed to her, taking her hands. "I know it's not you." "How?" "Because I know you." His eyes were dark with emotion. "I know you would never betray me, never betray this family. I know you would rather lose everything than compromise your integrity." She stared at him. "But the evidence is fabricated. We're already tracking the real source." He squeezed her hands. "Zuri, I need you to understand something. These past months, they've changed me. You've changed me." Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "I went into this arrangement thinking it would be simple. A transaction, nothing more. But you..." He laughed shakily. "You made me feel things I thought I was incapable of feeling. You challenged me. You stood up to me, to my mother, to Park, to everyone who tried to diminish you." Jae-won. "Let me finish." He took a breath. "The contract ends in 3 months. You'll receive your money, and you'll be free to leave. But I don't want you to leave." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I want you to stay. Not as a fake wife. As my real wife. As my partner. As the woman I love." Zuri's tears fell freely now. "You love me? I think I've loved you since you stared down Thomas Park without flinching." His smile was uncertain, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "I know this isn't what you signed up for. I know you have every reason to take the money and run far away from this world. But if there's even a chance..." She kissed him. It was their first real kiss, not the brief, performative ones they'd shared for appearances, but something deep and true and consuming. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. "Is that a yes?" he murmured. "It's a yes." She was laughing and crying at the same time. "It's always been a yes, Jae-won. I love you. I've loved you for, I don't even know how long. I was just too scared to admit it." "You? Scared?" He smiled. "The woman who made Thomas Park retreat? That was different. That was protecting the people I love." She touched his face. "This is risking my heart. That's much scarier." "Then let me make you a promise." He took her hands again. "I will spend every day for the rest of our lives making sure you never regret this choice. I will protect you, cherish you, and fight anyone who tries to come between us, including my mother." "She'll come around eventually," Zuri said. "Halmiani believes it." His eyes widened. "You spoke to Halmiani about us?" She knew about the contract. She knew everything. Zuri smiled. "And she approves." Halmiani passed away 3 weeks later, peacefully, with Jae-won holding one hand and Zuri holding the other. Her final words were for both of them: take care of each other. Love fiercely. And don't let anyone tell you who you're allowed to love. The funeral was a massive affair. The Kang family had deep roots in the community, and hundreds came to pay their respects. Zuri stood beside her husband, receiving condolences from people who had once looked at her with contempt and now regarded her with cautious respect. Soo-yeon watched from across the room, her expression unreadable. It was 3 days after the funeral when she finally approached Zuri. "I owe you an apology." Zuri nearly dropped her tea. "Halmini left me a letter." Soo-yeon's voice was stiff, as if the words were physically painful. She explained many things. About the contract, yes, but also about what she saw in you that I refused to see. Zuri set down her cup. "And what did she see?" "A woman who loves my son. Genuinely, completely, without agenda." Soo-yeon's lips pressed together. "I was so focused on what you weren't, Korean, connected, traditional, that I missed what you are." "And what am I?" "Strong. Loyal. Devoted to family." Soo-yeon met her eyes. "All the things I value most. All the things I should have recognized from the beginning." It wasn't a warm embrace. It wasn't instant friendship. But it was a beginning. "I will try to do better," Soo-yeon said. "For my son. For my mother's memory." A pause. "And for you. That's all I ask," Zuri said quietly. Zuri's own family came to visit a month later. Her mother, Denise, had been told the basics, that Zuri had married a wealthy businessman, that he was taking care of everything. But seeing the estate, meeting Jae-won, understanding the full scope of what Zuri had walked into, that was different. "You married into the mafia," Denise said flatly when they finally had a moment alone. "Mom." "Don't mom me," Zuri Elaine Ashford. But Denise's eyes were sparkling. "I just want to know one thing. Do you love him?" "Yes." "And does he love you?" "More than I ever thought possible." Denise nodded slowly. "Then that's all that matters." She pulled Zuri into a hug. "I'm proud of you, baby. You did what you had to do for this family, and you found love along the way. That's not something to be ashamed of. Even if his family runs a criminal empire. Every family has problems." Denise grinned. "Some just have more interesting ones than others." Naomi, healthy and vibrant now, demanded a full tour of the estate. Kira, who had finally accepted that medical school scholarship, wanted to know everything about how Zuri had navigated the household politics. And Jae-won? Jae-won charmed them all. He cooked Korean food for Denise and patiently answered her 100 questions about his intentions. He watched movies with Naomi and let her beat him at video games. He discussed medicine with Kira and promised to connect her with top professionals in her field. "He's a keeper," Naomi whispered to Zuri. "I mean, the mafia thing is a little weird, but he makes you smile. Like, really smile. That's all that matters." 1 year to the day from their courthouse wedding, Kang Jae-won and Zuri Ashford Kang renewed their vows. But this time, there was no contract. No transaction. No arrangement. There was only love. The ceremony was held in the garden where they'd first opened up to each other, surrounded by family and carefully chosen friends. Zuri wore a stunning gown designed specifically for her, a blend of Korean traditional elements and African American cultural touches that represented the blending of their worlds. Jae-won waited for her at the altar, his eyes suspiciously bright. The officiant spoke of love that grows in unexpected places, of two hearts that found each other against all odds, of the courage it takes to choose vulnerability over self-protection. And when it came time for the vows, Jae-won spoke first. "1 year ago, I offered you a contract. Cold. Businesslike. I thought I knew exactly what I was getting, a convenient arrangement that would satisfy obligations and then end." He took her hands. "I was so wrong. What I got was a partner who challenges me to be better. A wife who stands up to anyone for the people she loves. A woman who walked into the most dangerous situations without flinching and somehow brought warmth to a world that had gone cold." He lifted her hand to his lips. "I don't deserve you, Zuri. But I'm selfish enough to keep you anyway. I promised to spend every day proving that your faith in me wasn't misplaced." I promise to protect you, support you, and stand beside you through whatever comes. I promise to love you with everything I am, for as long as I live. Zuri blinked back tears. Jae-won, she began, her voice thick with emotion, I came into this arrangement with one goal, to save my family. I told myself it was just a job. That I would do what needed to be done and walk away when it was over. She laughed softly. I should have known better. From the moment I met you, something shifted. You saw me, not the struggling girl from the wrong neighborhood, not the outsider who didn't belong, but me. You gave me space to be strong and permission to be vulnerable. You stood up for me when I couldn't stand for myself, and you believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. She squeezed his hands. I promise to be your partner in every sense of the word. To stand beside you in the boardroom and the battlefield, in joy and in grief. To be the soft place you land when the world is too hard, and the steel at your back when you need reinforcement. I promise to love all of you, the CEO, the boss, the grandson, the man who leaves flowers in my room just because he knows I like them. She smiled through her tears. You gave me $3 million. But you also gave me something money can't buy, a love that transforms. A family that accepts me. A future I never dared to dream of. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I would have married you for free, Kang Jae-won. And I would do it again every single day. The guests erupted into applause when they kissed, a kiss that spoke of journey completed and journey begun, of endings that were really beginnings, of love that had started as a lie and become the most honest thing either of them had ever known. 3 years later. The Kang Ashford Foundation was the talk of Atlanta. Founded jointly by Jae-won and Zuri, it provided funding for medical treatment and educational opportunities for underserved communities, specifically targeting the kinds of families that Zuri had grown up around. The ones who fell through the cracks. The ones who had to make impossible choices. Denise was on the board. Kira, now a doctor, ran the medical wing. Naomi, healthy and thriving, was pursuing a career in social work so she could help other kids facing what she'd faced. And Soo-yeon? Soo-yeon had become one of the foundation's most generous donors, and, gradually, one of Zuri's closest confidants. It had taken time, but she'd learned to see her daughter-in-law not as an outsider, but as the best thing that had ever happened to her son. As for Jae-won and Zuri, they stood on the balcony of their home, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. Do you ever regret it? Jae-won asked, his arms wrapped around her from behind. Walking into that restaurant? Signing that contract? Zuri leaned back against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Never, she said softly. It was the best decision I ever made. Even though I'm technically a criminal mastermind? Even so. She turned in his arms, looping her hands behind his neck. Besides, you're not technically anything. You're officially retired from the more colorful aspects of the business, remember? For you, he murmured. Everything for you. She kissed him softly. I love you, Kang Jae-won. I love you more, Mrs. Kang. His smile was brighter than the setting sun. And I plan to spend the rest of my life proving it. And that, beautiful people, is where our story ends, but love? Love is just the beginning. If this story made you smile, made you feel things, or just gave you the escape you needed today, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who needs a good romance in their life. Drop a comment below telling me your favorite part. Was it when Zuri stood up to Thomas Park? When Jae-won finally confessed his feelings? Let me know. And if you want more stories like this, more drama, more romance, more strong women and the men who fall hard for them, make sure you turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay beautiful, stay strong, and always choose love.